Great, welcome all. I'm gonna go ahead and call to order.
I'll say that.
Oh,
Sorry.
welcome all. I'm gonna go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee on Thursday, November 14th. It is 5 p.m. and we're in the Austin Transit Partnership Office Room 129 at 203 Colorado Street, Austin, Texas. The first item will be going through the roll call. So I'll just sort of start. Mr. Brooks,
Ruben Brooks here.
Ms. Summers,
I'm here.
Mr. Crossley,
Here.
Ms. Berry,
Present.
Ms. Leto,
Here.
Azhar, Chair, I'm here. Mr. Gorse,
Here.
Mr. Reed,
Here.
Mr. Hendricks, and Ms. Mayer.
I'm here.
Thank you. And I think that's a full house. I'm not missing anyone, did I? Did I miss anyone else? I don't think so. Oh, yes, we're still, we don't have.
Marcel.
Yeah, so,
I will not be here next month. What's the official procedure?
we'll just start. So Marcel is not here and I feel like if he joins us, we'll acknowledge it. So our procedure for that is, I think when you send it out, you can just inform staff, and since we've heard it, we'll take it as is, and that's completely okay. Okay, thank you all. This takes us to essentially our land acknowledgement, and Ms. Barry, I was hoping that you could lead us through that.
Sure. We acknowledge with respect that the land we live in, work on, and enjoy is land that Indigenous people have lived in, worked on, and enjoyed from before it was ever called Austin. Although other peoples may have connections to this land, and this land is not necessarily claimed as ancestral or traditional land by all, these are some of the Indigenous peoples connected to this land.
Just slow, can you speak slow, sorry, for our interpreters.
Yes, the Tancoa, the Apache, the Isleta del Subpueblo, the Lipan Apache tribe, the Texas Band of Yankee Indians, the Coahuiltecan, the Alabama Cushada tribe of Texas, the Kickapoo tribe of Texas, Carrizo and Comecrudo, Tiwa, Pueblo, Cabo, Comanche, Kiowa, Wichita, Chickasaw, and Waco peoples. In honoring and celebrating our land, we wish to also honor and celebrate the Indigenous peoples that have resided, thrived, and taken care of the land here, now, and before us. While celebrating the spaces that we treasure in Austin, we need to recognize and further learn about the actions that have brought us to where we are. In acknowledging this land and the Indigenous people who are inextricably connected to it, we acknowledge the need to continue learning about, celebrating, and being mindful of the land and the Indigenous peoples connected to it. We acknowledge the need to learn from and honor with gratitude and appreciation the Indigenous peoples of this land.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barry, I appreciate it. Do we have anybody signed up for public communication?
No, sir.
Okay, that takes us to our first action item, which is the approval of our October 10th minutes. These were distributed previously. Does anybody have anything they wish to have edited or changed? If not, do I have a motion?
I move approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Ms.
from
Flato.
Thursday, October 10th,
I
2024.
second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Ms. Plato, seconded by Ms. Berry for approval for October 10th, 2024 minutes. All in favor say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you all so much. We're starting with some of our action items because I think they're sort of quicker, and I'm going to make sure that we get to them. One is really adoption of our calendar, meeting calendar for 2025. So, Mr. Banks, if you can pull it up, we can have everybody look at it. This was distributed previously. I took a brief look at it, and we don't have any hard issues right now, but I want to make sure that generally it looks fine. Particularly, honestly, the spring break meeting might be the one I have not looked at, but if folks have a better understanding of the AISD calendar or otherwise and would like us to consider that, we can reconsider that March meeting specifically. But oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say the 13th, the spring break starts the next day on the 14th or the 17th.
Okay.
But the following Monday
Oh,
technically is when AISD starts.
Okay.
So it's
We
the week
actually have
before.
the Friday off too, but yes.
Yeah, so the 14th is when it starts.
It's a weird
Yeah.
+1.
Actually, that'll work out well then.
Yeah, that's
the day
yeah.
before.
So if nobody has any concern with that, November and December actually were far enough away from the holidays that it seemed okay.
Doesn't look like it's close to a May possible election date.
Yeah, no, we pretty much,
We're on
are-
Thursday,
They're usually
but yeah.
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're okay.
if not, do I have a motion to approve and adopt our 2025 meeting calendar?
I'll move adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Summers.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mayor. So we have a motion by Ms. Summers, seconded by Ms. Mayor to adopt our 2025 meeting calendar as distributed and on the screen right now. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you all so much. And staff will go ahead and work on room reservation. And if necessary, and we need to have a special call meeting, we'll of course go ahead with it. Yes,
Can I just ask, like, I'll wanna actually block all that out on my calendar, but then if possible, some of the staff could just do that and send it to everybody.
we can make that request. Staff, would it be
Does that seem
possible to
reasonable?
send? Yep.
Yeah.
The calendar meeting.
Yeah, if you can send a calendar invite to everybody.
That's no problem. Or I could do it and send it to everybody.
You cannot actually,
Yeah.
so we have
Okay,
quorum
there you go.
issues.
Thank you.
So staff will do that to make sure that we don't have any quorum issues. So we'll, yeah, we'll have it on everyone's calendar. And a reminder again that if there's an email like that that has everyone's name on it, please don't reply all. So we have our appointments back on here, and it was really to accommodate folks who might not have been here last time when we were talking about this. So essentially, just so folks know, we established a new working group, got rid of another working group. So we, right now, and if you look at our agenda, you'll see we have a light rail design working group that works with ATP staff, a governance working group that is internal, anti-displacement working group that works with the city's housing department, ETOD working group that's working with the planning department and Cap Metro and others. And then we have a Cap Metro services and infrastructure working group as well, which will be working with Cap Metro staff. We did decide to remove the public safety working group and move to a different process. Not everybody was present last time, so we just wanted to make sure if folks wanted to get appointed to this, this is the moment to be able to speak up and say that they would like that, and we can make sure that you're added to it. And I also know that if folks have questions again on what these are and what they do, we're happy to talk about that as well. Yes.
I did want to acknowledge, staff, the website had some great updates, that I think makes it a little bit more navigable, and, the committees are, updated and listed there. I know I think the public safety is still there, but so maybe we need to remove that, but this is so, it feels nitpicky, but it might be important. I don't know. It does say committee members, and I believe there's a difference in state law with a committee versus a working group. So we may want to just make sure to have that language updated, because it's working group, not committee. Those are different under TOMA and things, I think. So we may want to be mindful of that.
Yes, you are correct. These would be working groups, and that's
Yeah.
why they're sub-quorum.
Yeah, so I think if I just,
Committees will,
Yeah, and those
Updating that would
need
be
to be
good.
updated, so we'll make sure that that actually then gets to happen. We haven't fully updated the membership as well.
Yeah.
That's a good catch, thank you. Particularly, I guess, not to put y'all on the spot, but I guess what I really wanted to think was, Mr. Gorse and Miss Mayor, y'all were not here last time when we were doing working groups, and if y'all have any interest in a working group, we can go ahead and appoint you. Mr. Gorse, go ahead.
I'm wondering if you're thinking of someone else, because I just wanted to say that I was here last month.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I'm on the ETOD group.
Yep, you are right. That is my bad. I missed that. Sorry about that. If there's another one that you want to be on, please let us know. If not, that's fine. And-
Can you repeat the working groups that y'all currently have? Because I know I was on the other working group, the one that you disbanded, the public safety one.
Yep, and actually I should mention there's not all of them have appointment space right now. So we have a governance working group that has space on it, and a displacement working group that has space on it. Cap Metro Services and Infrastructure Working Group that has space on it.
You know what? I would love to be a part of the Cat Metro group.
Perfect, thank you
Please
so
and
much.
thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
very
that's
much.
great.
And I'm sorry I wasn't here last time. I kept trying to join and it was not working out. Anyway, so sorry.
No worries. We appreciate that very much. I'll go ahead and make a motion to appoint Ms. Mayor to the, I'm sorry, let me read this, the Cap Metro Services and Infrastructure Working Group. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Crossley, so motion by Azhar, seconded by Mr. Crossley to appoint Ms. Mayor to the Cap Metro Services and Infrastructure Working Group.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is the list online, you said this is newly updated?
No,
Okay.
it hasn't
Okay,
been.
I
The
thought-
membership has not been updated yet, so.
I think the design of the site
Okay.
is refreshed. That's, would have
That's
been,
weird.
yeah.
And I currently have you is noted as being part of the anti-displacement working group and the Cap Metro Services and Infrastructure Working Group. So Ms. Brady, just to let you know.
Thank you.
And since this is now actually finalized, I'll share it with staff, we can update the website and also distribute it. Okay, that actually disposes off all of our action items because they had to be listed separately. I'm sorry.
I think we just seconded but didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank
Aye.
you. By unanimous consent, that's Ms. Mayor has been appointed. Thank you, Mr. Crossley, for helping me with that. And that takes us directly to our discussion items, and we have a presentation from our Cap Metro staff on the red and green line updates. I know this was requested a while back by the committee, and we're sort of going through all of our agenda items through the year.
Thank you. I'll let Mr. Banks take the presentation up and I'll go and get started.
I think the voice will capture, or should we ask speakers to maybe move here? I can.
Jacob talking, let's see how people feel.
Can you hear me now? There I am.
Can one of our online participants let us know if you can hear?
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
hear.
we can hear him.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. Okay. Whenever.
Awesome. Well, good evening, Community Advisory Committee members. My name is Jacob Calhoun. I am the Director of Transit System Enablement. I will be giving a presentation on Cap Metro's rail projects. That is the red and the green line, and considering the colors that we're working with today, December may have been a more appropriate time, just Christmas and everything, but Christmas waits for no man, so let's go ahead and get started then. This is a different presentation, guys.
Is it?
It is.
All right, well, give me a
I'm
second.
happy to talk about our major achievements.
I was like, I was just gonna say those are great achievements, so.
Already been accomplished.
All right, well, give me 1 second. Sorry, I thought I had it right.
Should be the 11-14 one.
Yeah.
This is such a quick note because we saw it for a few seconds, but it's exciting to see actually how much ridership we have in our pickup service. That's really taking off. That's very exciting.
With more improvements to come, so we're anxiously anticipating how the future is going to be.
And Giannis, I can also share my screen if you'd like me to do that. I have the presentation ready.
Yeah, if you want to, I'm downloading it now, but whichever is comfortable for you.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Mhm.
There we go.
That work?
That looks good, Melissa. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome.
You can go to the next slide. So the first line we'll be talking about is the red line. We have a variety of different initiatives that we're doing on that corridor. The Cala Station is kind of the first one that's already in service right now. The RAISE grant will be the next item we'll cover, then the Red Line Trail Study, and then Broadmoor Station. Next slide, please. So McAllen Station is a brand new rail station along the Red Line. It was implemented earlier this year, right in time for the Austin FC soccer season. One of the really amazing things
Sorry, we're just excited that Urban Transportation Commissioner Spencer Schumacher is staring right at the camera there.
I'm very
so-
excited.
Yeah, it's, the station is currently in service. You can get off of it any day you want to ride the rail. But one of the exciting things where it truly shines is whenever there's a game at Q2 Stadium. As you can see from the graphics and the information here, we move about 30% of the fans that are at the stadium and on transit, and the bulk of that is through our rail service. And so we've been having some awesome ridership on game days, and it's great to see that in full effect in this visual too. Next slide, please. But we have other projects that we're still working on as well. First one I'll put up here is the RAISE grant. So this is a double tracking project that's about $32 million. CAT Metro was awarded a grant from the feds for 18 million of the at 32, so a little bit over 50%. And then the remaining 40-ish% is coming from a local share, mainly CAT Metro, but also a portion in collaboration with the city of Austin. The project is anticipated to complete design in 2025, and construction will begin in 2026, going on until about 2028. Next slide. So as mentioned, this is a double tracking project. It stretches from Onion Street on the west, all the way to the Austin Y on the east, which is that kind of segment of the rail line where it splits apart just a little bit east of Robert T. Martinez. So the double tracking will include some signalization and modifications to the PTC, which is a system we use for our rail to help keep it safe. There'll also be some improvements in safety for railroad crossings at Onion, Mall, Chacon, and Robert T. Martinez. A big portion of this is the Plaza Saltillo station will be adding an additional platform to it. Right now, it's currently one platform that is used by both north and south directions. With this project, we'll be adding a second platform that will allow for a platform in each direction, one for north, one for south. This also helps with the flow of our operations and helps provide space for the green line in the future. As part of that station platform increase, we are going to have to reconfigure Fifth Street in this area, but we've been working collaboratively with the city of Austin to help make sure there's good circulation through the area. Another big portion of this, and something we've been closely working with the city on, is sidewalk and shared use path. So improvements to allow for better bike and pedestrian access and accessibility through this area, this corridor.
What does WB stand for? What, reconfiguration of the street between Knoxville and Chicon one way,
Oh,
westbound?
westbound,
Okay,
yes,
just making
sorry. Next slide, please. And so the segment of the RAISE grant that is getting the bike and trail improvements is not the only one that will be getting bike and trail improvements along the corridor. As part of the Red Line Trail study that we just recently completed, it's a vision for an all ages and abilities regional urban trail that has strong transit accessibility and connections to nearby trails and bikes. This will generally follow the 32-mile corridor, and the study was a key portion of that, provide the feasibility and understanding of rail right-of-way and what areas are best suited to have trails adjacent to the red line. Next slide. So in order to kind of implement the Red Line Trail, we'll be working with our governmental jurisdictions to help provide that implementation. What the Red Line Trail does is it shows where there are options and what different segments look like for trail feasibility. But it is up to those jurisdictions and partners to help bring the engineering, design, and implementation of that as funding becomes available. The complexity of the segment also has a big determination of how the trail will look in that area. But we look forward to collaborating with our partners to continue to build out this trail and provide a vital link throughout the city. Next slide. So the final Red Line initiative that we've got here is the Broadmoor Rail Station. This new rail station is adjacent to the Uptown ATX development, which is on the north side of Austin near the Domain. We are currently in developer discussions right now with the developer of Uptown ATX. But this new station will include new platforms, new drainage, track improvements, so providing additional double tracking along this area. as well as a extension of the Red Line Trail that we just mentioned. So this was kind of showcasing that actively happening as we advance this. Next slide. And then the green line is a later investment in the Project Connect financial model. This is a project that goes from downtown station all the way out towards Colony Park. This would be a new commuter rail line service that would be sharing the same tracks as the Red Line from downtown station to that Austin Y area, and then be going on its own out towards Colony Park from there. While this will be a project that will be invested in later, Cap Metro is investing in it now at the same time. So the investments we're making right now help provide the groundwork for the green line. So the RAISE grant that was mentioned previously is a down payment on the green line to help provide operational flexibility for this line in the future. We're also looking to acquire property to help support transit services, as well as providing track improvements to the existing freight line, so that way it's better able to handle passenger service in the future. While this will be a later investment in the Project Connect financial model, it is something that Cap Metro is seeking complementary funding as opportunities present themselves to help advance portions of the green line in the meantime. And that concludes my presentation. If y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Summers, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have some questions, maybe about a couple things, but definitely about the Broadmoor station.
Mhm.
I know, I think that that's been maybe a little confusing to folks, because a number of years ago, there was even a groundbreaking on it. And I know that financial partnership with the developer there of the Broadmoor site has been something that y'all are seeking. Obviously, makes a lot of sense that you would seek that and have their collaboration. But I saw a presentation at UTC now, probably over a year ago, that was sort of queried a little bit about what sort of the source of the delays are. Maybe it's just the development itself is delayed, but I wondered if you could speak to that timeline and getting extended out a little bit for us.
A lot of it is kind of depending on where the developer is at this stage of their development process. I know they're getting closer to finishing some of their initial build outs and buildings. But as they kind of move east in their development process, the Broadmoor station is kind of the next in line for that. So it's just a kind of timing aspect with them, making sure that everyone's comfortable with the project moving forward at the right time.
Yeah, do you know, like, do y'all know exactly where it's going to be sited at this point? Like what the exact site for the station is? Has that sort of been determined?
We pretty much have that one down. It's generally just north of the Topgolf there.
Right.
Kind of directly, we'll call it east of where the current Solarium apartments, I think are. I think that's the name of it. Solarium? Okay. So it's pretty much directly off the tracks next to IBM campus on that southeast corner.
The southeast corner. Is that where the crossing signal is now going to Schwab, or is it to the north or south of that? No.
I believe it's just a little bit north of the Schwab crossing, if my memory serves correctly.
Yeah.
It's very adjacent to Schwab.
Yeah, and how is Schwab are partnering with Cap Metro on that station? That's something that, because I'm obviously very familiar with this area, I live next door.
Yeah.
So like they're very like fenced off, it's like a fortress, like are they like pretty open to partnership or at least some porosity for their workers there? Like what are conversations like that? What have those conversations been? Do you know?
They've been active in our developer discussions. And so they've been integrated in the process and they're completely at the table and want to make sure that it's a good project for all parties.
Okay, that's good to hear, because that was something I was a little concerned about as well. So is there, is engineering and like design been done, or we're not really there yet for that site?
I believe all that has been taken care of. I think at this point, it's just once the agreements are in place, we're able to begin construction.
Yeah, so, and then with the developer, I'm sorry, I'm very
No
interested in
worries,
this
it's your
item.
backyard.
But, I'm curious if, like, so the developer is obviously, I know, they're gonna be very concerned with, the people that live and work in their community, not their community, their buildings, their property, having access. One of the concerns that I've had one of the concerns I've had is people that live really nearby also having access to this, and like, right now, there's, a lack of pedestrian, I mean, there are ways to walk through there that people definitely use all the time, be
Mhm.
included, but, there's sort of outlaw ways of accessing that site, so, I was curious of like, what has been given to sort of the interactivity between like the apartments on Gracie Farm,
Mhm.
Metric, maybe like Stone Hollow, there's some development going in over there where there's some light industrial, of like what thought has been given to like sort of access paths perhaps to the station for some of the people living in those communities.
Well, this is a key portion where that red line trail comes in very handy. So there's a project going on for the city right now to help implement a trail segment parallel to the red line and connecting to the Broadmoor station. And so that one would connect all the way to the Walnut Creek Trail, located on the north of this location. And that would provide kind of for anybody up and down that trail to get to the station.
It's good to hear.
Go ahead, Mr. Crossley, do you want to jump in?
I guess I'm thinking about the planning side, like, is there a TOD overlay there? And
I
thus-
believe it's all part of the North Branch Gateway.
Yeah.
I think it even goes all the way to Metric, so that's all within that location between Gracie Farms, Metric, and back.
And
But hopefully that has standards of good pedestrian access and things.
yes, and I think definitely if y'all want to look into it, I think they can definitely be strengthened and improved. And actually, I can't remember if it's all, I think it's already done. The station areas are being moved, so they are in Northmere Gateway now. We should be aligned with McKellar and Broadmoor actually as future duties, because previously they were not, because that's not where the stations were. So I think that's been done, but that does not mean that more work could not be done. You can see it right there. That's
I
very
have a
helpful.
quick question. So the work that's been done around the red line, by the, I don't know what station that is, it's by ACC, but it's by the Island campus. Is that part of this red line trail? Because they've definitely done
I
just
have to
recently very large,
follow up with the folks at the Red Line Trail to understand if that's kind of within their alignment, but based off the signs I've seen there, I think it is.
Yeah,
we've
I mean,
got
they went
little
way
signs
beyond it.
promoting that the Red Line Trail goes this way, Red Line Trail goes that way,
okay.
so I think it is kind of technically part of that.
And I guess I was just wondering if that's an example of what the trail would look like in other sections.
Yeah, I think there's a few segments along the alignment. There's another one that's near MLK station, just south of that. It kind of goes to the parkland over there. So there's a variety of trails that kind of align along the alignment.
There's some that are additionally funded, like part behind my apartment complex, just north of what we're talking about, is actually funded from the 2016 bonds, and, but not built yet. So there are some pieces that are sort of funded piecemeal through elements of the bonding program in the city of Austin.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because the one by ACC is really new. I mean, they just recently did it. Whereas I think MLK, I don't think they've done any recent work on that.
It's south of MLK. It's 12th Street area. There's a park over that way. I know there's a trail.
Creek area. Yeah, it's a Foggy Creek trail.
Yeah.
It's over there.
Tonight, there's actually a red line trail event going on, actually, at this moment, that I was invited to as well. Yeah, I had a question, I believe this is the red line, does red line go to Breaker as well? It's very interesting, they took the train up to that area, to Domain, said every 30 minutes, it leaves from downtown, and it comes back down every hour. Is there any reason for like every hour to come towards downtown area?
Going south.
Yeah, what is with the?
It
the
depends on
change?
what time they went. So generally on peak hours, so we're talking like your 6 to 9 and your 4 till 6:30, 6 or so. We'll be running trains about every 35 minutes. In the off-peak hours is around an hour in between trains. A lot of that has to do with the infrastructure of the line in and of itself at this point. It's mainly a single track throughout a lot of it, which creates a lot of operational complexity, having to try and make sure the trains don't, run into each other. But generally, we do try and run about every 35 minutes, and as more things like this race grants and the more double tracking come in, that provides us a lot more operational flexibility to increase the frequency of the line.
So I guess during the off-peak hours, it should be it's the same going south and north?
Correct.
Okay.
It just may be different times because of the fact that we have to make sure that they're going safely in each direction.
I know there was a concern too, there was a 5-year-old waiting for an hour for the train to come back towards, into town, so she was just really confused with that.
Totally understand. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of places that have opened up along the line, so if you need to pop into I know, Victoria has much board games and stuff, and we've taken our kids there before, so it's like, there are places adjacent that, if you need to wait, you can't wait. It's just gonna go.
According to the data after, the red line is ferociously expensive. And they can run the top 5 bus lines for less than cost from the red line. So I think they're being somewhat cautious about increasing service.
I mean, certainly in the Project Connect planning process, the idea to double track is a huge part of the Project Connect concept, because that's really the operating constraint on being more frequent with the red line, but there's a little bit of push-pull there to thinking about when you don't have capacity, then that suppresses your demand. There's some reinforcing cycles there. So that's something that I know the staff has talked to us a lot before, both on this body and other, when we were even planning Project Connect and getting ready for the vote. So I think it's really hard when you have, I don't have the answers, but when you have a service that people want to use, but then the frequency is so low, then that becomes almost at points it would hard to use from a user perspective if you have other choices. So I think, that's one of the key paradoxes of transit, right? Of making transit that really works for people. So I don't know.
It's also an active freight corridor, and so we have to coordinate with our freight provider to make sure we're clearing the tracks for them.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things to work through, but again, as more improvements are made to the system, then it's able to be more flexible and operate.
Can I have a question and then just add a little bit there? Is also the amount of people who live and work within walking distance of the station dictates how much useful transit you can provide. We still have height limits at Crestview and things that are not allowing the red line to work. But back in the day, I don't remember all the steps. There was a Project Connect plan. And in the ideal plan, all the double tracking and blah, blah, blah was gonna get us to 15-minute frequency. And then Todd Hemmingson had a plan to get to 7-minute in some distant future. And is there a reasonable, where, will this get us to greater frequency? How many years from now will we get to what?
With the raise grant and the Broadmoor projects built in, that will allow us to change the frequency. At this point, it's operationally complex to try and do that.
Yeah.
But having those double tracking projects put in, we'll be able to look at adjusting the frequency accordingly.
So that's within a year or two, it could be real changes to frequency.
Yeah, with the raise grant being about 2028, maybe a few more years,
Okay.
but there's gonna be a lot of construction going on over the next 5 years, 535, and everything else going on, including folks here at ATP working on stuff, so it's gonna be very busy and messy for a while.
There's also the overall issue of the supply of operators, mechanics.
It is important to have the workforce we need to operate the system.
With the Broadmoor station, I know one of the things with the McCalla station is it can hold, 2 trains, you know, why can't the words, one behind the other, right? Like, and obviously that's a real special loading need at the McCalla station, but how, like, what is the size of the Broadmoor station? Like, how are y'all building that out? Because I think the other thing is like eventually, you know, longer trains, maybe in the distant future, you know?
More capacity at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have off the top of my head exactly how long that one is. I would imagine it's similar to the 280 that's being proposed at Plaza Saltillo,
Mhm.
but we definitely go check into that, get back to you.
Yeah, I'd be curious, follow up for email.
I don't know if this is worth saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Go for it.
Somebody one time mentioned that the red line was the red line. Like that line was the red line because of the red lining. And I don't know if that was, I just wanna let you know that that was something that people were saying. So something to just be aware of in terms of, I don't know, like marketing, or just wanted to bring attention to that, that was something that people were discussing and saying.
Understood. That's
I
not
know
why
it's just
it's
a
called
color,
that.
I know it's just a color, I understand that, I just wanted to share that that's something that I've heard in the community.
That's right.
Go ahead, Mr.
Another
Crawford.
question, but I've heard that too. So in terms of the money, the match, I'm curious if that is all TRE or some TRE.
Oh, on the race grant,
Yeah,
that's mainly coming from CAC Metro funds.
it's not Cat Metro
It's a
funds, so
separate-
it's like, okay. But just maybe the way to put it is that having local transit funding allows us to pull
Yeah.
down that federal money, and that's a good story.
Yeah, I mean, we're, by investing in ourselves, we're able to get other people to invest in us.
But the intent is some of the TRE could go towards red and green line.
Oh, absolutely. It's just based off of the flow of funds, depends on when it
Yeah.
gets there.
For the green line, you mentioned, like property acquisitions. Would that be, I mean, I'm especially thinking of like those, like things like Colony Park and like those segments out, past the Y. Is that like sort of where the property acquisition would come into place, or more with like double tracking, just trying to get a little bit wider row? Like what does that property acquisition piece look like?
We're looking at a variety of different areas along the corridor. Some of it is more station oriented, some of it is more operations oriented. But it's really just looking for opportunities to make our lives a little bit easier once the project does get built. Because property acquisition is a time consuming process. And so better to go ahead and invest in it now if we can, as opposed to waiting until we absolutely have to do it, have to take longer to do it. So just trying to get ahead of things before the project gets going.
Yeah.
You mentioned for the green line, you're seeking complementary funding.
Mhm.
Are you able to say where you're seeking?
I mean, the raise grant is a
It's with-
big example of it, but we just keep our eyes open. If there's anything else that does come up, that would allow us to further invest in the corridor ahead of when the TRE funds are coming in, that's,
The federal grants, more,
if there's other opportunities for them to come about, sure. But a lot of it is gonna be determined on the viability of if we can achieve the grant or not at that point. But I mean, I'm sure there's other sources of funds beyond just feds. If there's a state investment, that's fine too. We're not really concerned about what the color of the money is at this point, as long as it can help us bring the project to fruition.
Go ahead, Mr. Crawford.
Just made me think of something. There's always the whole dream, if you build the full green line and then if Houston built a commuter rail line to Hempstead, that the connection between those two is fairly affordable. And there's a tech thought study of doing that as an intercity rail line. It would cost $1 billion. It must be done. And so my point is, in a magical future where there is state funding for intercity rail, what y'all are doing with the green line could play along with such a plan.
Conceivably, yes.
On the other hand,
Which also, the Green Line uniquely would be the one Metro asset that could sort of get such money, you know, or sort of count as going towards an inner city.
It is going in the right direction.
Yeah.
on the other hand, in Green Line, it's awfully expensive and competes directly with the expo grant for rapid.
Mhm.
More of complements, because they are different services for different markets. And so there will be some people that are looking to go straight into downtown. There may be someone who is at LBJ High School, is looking to go to Dell Medical School and the medical hospital in Mueller. So won't be on the Green Line, but it will be on the Expo line. So there are opportunities in different directions.
Other questions, and particularly folks online?
I think I have one last question. It's about the Green Line. For the Green Line, we would have to acquire a lot more trains, right? That's, I assume.
There would be a need for additional fleet.
Yeah.
But we do have a decent amount right now, but of course, over time, that gets used, there probably is some need for replacements, that kind of thing. So, fleet aspects will be kind of determined as we work close to project implementation.
Yeah, and most of the fleet, is most of the fleet from like, 09, like when it opened, or like has there been additional fleet acquisitions since then? I don't even know that answer.
Yes, there is a good amount that is from the original, but there's also been a few more that have been purchased. I don't know the exact date of when that was, but I do know there was some in the past few years.
2019, 2018.
That's what I want to say, is like pre-pandemic, we did buy some trains and have them shipped down here.
I always remember when it opened because I have, one of my favorite pictures is I have, me and my daughter who's in 10th grade. She's about two or 3 months old on the opening day, so on the train. So that's like, I always can like pinpoint like how old it is from, I just need to think about how old Lena is, so.
Go ahead, Mr.
Final
Crossley.
comment is that the Fort Worth train is the same trains.
It's
They,
the DCTA, the one up in Denton is the same stafford model.
okay, I thought the new, whatever the new Fort Worth, well, okay, so maybe they're different, but the Fort Worth ones, they have a bathroom. And it's real nice.
Gotcha.
So in future trains, we should consider bathroom.
You know, it's always important to go before you go.
Yeah.
Is that an official comment?
I definitely have some questions and then a bunch of comments. I think one on the red line trail study, is it available online or can be
It
shared?
is,
Okay.
I did want to mention that you can go to CAC Metro's website and find the full study, deliverables, all the stuff on there. And big kudos to our team of planning, especially Jordan McGee that's led that effort, brought it to fruition.
Very exciting, thank you. And then on the Green Line raise grant, what, I mean, I guess there was like 3 bullet points, there were 2 bullet points underneath. Are those the things that are being funded through the raise grant? For the Green Line specifically, I guess, what is it that we're already putting money towards? Planning, scoping?
So you can think of that section of the corridor as both a red and green line project. And so by investing in the red line, we're investing in the green line for that area. And so that's generally what the raise grant is doing, is it is a double investment in both projects, essentially.
I appreciate that. I do have a bunch of comments and some actually from my colleagues. One was, I think on the Green Line, the Collin Park master planning process has started, and in their initial vision plan, there was sort of the station area designated. I hope that that's something that Cap Metro, I'm assuming, is already working with that team to figure that out. Partially, I'll just be honest, before we have an area that will have higher market values, etc., particularly the acquisition or land dedication that we need to have, would be great to have that essentially part of that planning effort. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, and I haven't seen the red line trail study, I'm very excited to look at it. This is honestly a question somewhat for my colleagues on the Urban Transportation Commission as well. The Select Planning Commission had, we're having a lot of issues of zoning cases are coming in, and currently there's nothing built in our code, as far as I understand, to have a dedication towards a red line trail as those developments are going in or we're negotiating something or as part of the permitting process. I don't know if that's something the Urban Transportation Commission has sort of looked at, if we can, because part of the problem was I think we did not have that level of understanding what the trail could look like. And if we have that now, is there a possibility to look at it the same way we ask people to dedicate right of way for other kinds of infrastructure? Then we start having right of way
Yes.
dedication for the Red Line Trail, because otherwise those gaps are very hard to complete afterwards.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so we actually have a recommendation that Urban Transportation Commission passed in July. That it speaks to all those issues. So that's recommendation 2024-0709-004. So yeah, it's definitely an issue. I think too, one of the things that's unique with the concept of like the Red Line Trail versus some of our other urban trails, like we've been in the context of thinking of urban trails as built in City of Austin so far have been very like park, sort of like nature, very like in the wild. But the Red Line Trail, through some segments of it, has the opportunity to be very urban trail, like you were talking about, where it opens onto a plaza with a beer garden or, you know, some kind of art space, or like and then you're walking along shops. And so I think one of the concerns that we're hearing too is that also, you heard this sort of in my questioning a little bit about Broadmoor, is that like, there's a concern with the urban design as projects are built along that rail, that sort of the context, the built context currently is sort of like a light industrial type thing. Maybe it backs onto sort of a loading dock, and thinking about ways we can transform that and open that up to be a more people-centered spaces along that trail and along the line. So I think that those are something we really need to think about in the development standards and the developer agreements as we go along that trail. So we have some recommendations in that recommendation to City Council that may be relevant as well. So I think it's something that, and I unfortunately think there's some things coming through where right now we could be missing opportunities. So I think that we really, really want to quickly think about that, because it's happening right around us all the time as these cases come through. So.
Yeah, and I think that's really helpful, and it would be great if urban transportation, if others could push for that. I think that's something Planning Commission has sort of been thinking about it, but we get so bogged down by so many things. I think we've not been able to look at it comprehensively. It really has been parcel by parcel as cases are moving forward. But I think having this study, I think, is a great linchpin to further that conversation. And exactly, like I think right of way is one thing, but I think you're also raising the kind of standards that were thought of in Plaza Saltillo, where we wanted active frontages on the trail to not just on the street. So various different things to think about.
Yeah, because a lot of those sections, there's sections that are very lightly developed or undeveloped that I think are going to begin developing more heavily. And I think it's going to really be transformative if we can get that right, you know, and it's going to be a sort of a different model of the urban trail that like kind of is more like a third space, very activated, potentially, if we can do it right. So.
And sorry, go ahead.
Just a little thing to add in there is also Metro bike stations are a thing that developers could pay for. And like making sure that it's possible for developers to sort of contribute to that effort. But then maybe also be responsible for it, so like figuring out exactly, make sure we're ready for all that. But ideally there's a Metro bike station at each rail station, and ideally a developer pays for it.
Yeah, and to that point too, even things like, and this picks up on some of the things that Ms. Berry was talking about, but in terms of like, the red line doesn't go through the domain, but you could use it to get to the domain, but then you have to safely transverse from the site to the domain. And so making sure there's signage and pathways and lights and, you know, navigability and a bike station and like all of those things that are gonna make people feel safe and confident to do that walk, who aren't weirdos like me that just do outlaw walks all over that area. So, you know, so I think that those kinds of things are all that important. And I think the North Burnett Gateway Plan speaks to a lot of those things, but then it's like, how do you require and enforce them, which kind of speaks to the things that our chair was getting at, so. Yeah.
Yeah, with the caveat and understanding that, of course, a lot of that is within the hands of the city, not necessarily Cap Metro. So Cap Metro cannot define that, but I think on the city side, we as a body that, makes recommendations, if that's something, honestly, the Cap Metro working group wants to look at how to actualize the red line, I think that's something we can consider. And then sort of linked to actually what was coming up here was when the city was working on the equitable transit-oriented development overlay, one piece of that density bonus was the ability to have transit supportive infrastructure. Sort of TBD, I think this was the first time we were doing it as a city, so we're trying to figure it out. But the idea was that in lieu of a development bonus, somebody could provide transit supportive infrastructure. It's only right now linked to the light rail corridor itself. But that's something that I think if it's something that Cap Metro wants to consider in other places where it could impact red line and green line or other kinds of infrastructure. I think that's again, I think there's a lot of people on the city side who might be interested and open to that. Partially, I think just we don't understand the infrastructure as well as Cap Metro, of course, does.
And that's understandable. I mean, like, there's a difference between the local bus stop and the rapid bus stop, and the Metro bike system and all those various services, but they're all kind of pedestrian oriented things that you have to be a pedestrian whenever you start it. And so the more we can kind of pedestrian orient stuff, the better. And certainly the more we can get transit infrastructure in place, the better.
And I think from that perspective of like, if the development is coming in and they're getting more FAR or they're getting some other sort of entitlement given to them, could we essentially say that they have to provide the funding for that bus infrastructure or a pull-in or whatever it needs to be? Again, I don't know, this is not my world at all. But yeah, I think that's like another conversation where we could start talking about how do we leverage private development to essentially have some of those cost conversations.
And then there is the fact that two entirely separate legislative body or government bodies are involved. Which is part of what our subcommittee has been learning about, that any zoning changes are city of Austin. Cap Metro can get down on their knees and understand. Requesting those changes, and if the city doesn't respond, those changes don't happen.
Again, I would say honestly, if that body has the ability to sort of, have recommendations, because we do make recommendations to all three, including City of Austin, I think that's something we would be happy to forward as well. Because one of the things I think that has emerged for the CAC, honestly, over the years that we've been here is that it's emerged as a place where we can have conversations about all three things at the same time. And sometimes that's hard, but yes, we can push that forward. Other questions or comments? And I do want to acknowledge Mr. Garza is here as well. Hello, hello. Do other folks have questions or comments on this item? If not, I'll just say thank you so much. Thank you,
Sure.
staff.
Thanks a lot. So Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Yes.
Red and green.
Thanksgiving first.
Oh, wait, red and
I know.
green, that's what I'm
It's the
saying,
red and
red and green line.
So we do have staff updates as our next item. I'm not sure from the ADP side if we have any updates. I see Michelle is just walking up.
Yes, just a couple quick ones. One that we've already mentioned is website. So we are in process of transitioning the Project Connect and CAC websites, so ATP is now maintaining them. So we haven't done a deep dive of cleaning it, so that was one good catch. We'll probably take it to the governance working group to do an overview of all the language changes before bringing it back here, because really a lot of that, a lot of what's on the website for the CAC is from the original 2021 version. So let's do a complete review and make sure everything is accurate, descriptions are updated. But if you're not in that working group and you do see issues on the website, feel free to email me and let me know, because we can do updates whenever we need to. So that's one.
And I do want to say just on that, this is on me because I had told y'all before and I never did. So please remind me, I have the master list right now of the new working group appointments. I took notes last time and I've added to it. I do need to just send that to staff because
They're in the minutes too.
they're in the minutes as well.
Yes, we think our list is correct, so he's been updating, but we'll also do a cost comparison to make sure.
Perfect, yes.
As for the website, what languages and how do you guys do the language translations?
So currently there is I'll be able to answer this, drop down menu where you can change languages to Spanish and additional other languages that are safe harbor languages in Austin. I can't remember the Project Connect website directly. I think it's.
No, we're pulling it up right
Because
now.
that is actually the ATP website. And I'm thinking it's the same for all of them. Oh, on the right there. One thing to note on that is we've actually just gone through an audit review process about language access, which this is part of their review. So what we're trying to do is make sure that, because we know that when you hit Spanish or any of the other languages, certain PDFs or images don't always translate correctly or accurately. And so what we're doing is a process to make sure that we do a review to ensure that that happens with native speakers.
And do you have native speakers reviewing the translation?
Yes, we actually have a contract with folks to be able to do that.
I know that City of Austin website uses some like overall translation, and it, for example, Councilmember Leslie Piscina, is it translated cool? So I'm just saying.
Oh, I love
it. Ana Cocina. So I'm just wanting to throw that out.
Thank you very much. Yes, we are aware of that challenge, and we want to make sure we don't let that happen.
Are there updates from the ATP
I
side?
need a new picture.
That's it. Okay.
Oh, it's lovely. Yeah.
So the second update is really a scheduling, sort of giving you a heads up of where we're heading. Because we have been a little bit, I wouldn't say quiet, but we didn't have a lot of updates over the past couple of months on light rail specific. We are getting ready to publish our draft environmental impact statement before the end of the year, which will then kick off a 60-day comment period. So we're really looking at beginning 2025. Probably starting the ATP hosted open houses around the alignment about mid-January timeframe. So we're going to get all those dates confirmed over the next couple of weeks so we can start to advertise and share them out. But through January into February, we're going to be looking to not just do ATP hosted events, but attend community events that we can do in community, partner with organizations. So if there are organizations that you want us to be connected to, that would be a great place for us to go, just let us know. We are getting onto boards and commissions agendas already for January, February timeframe. So you'll see us at UTC and various others.
Are they already on?
If we're not, it's in the works.
Well, we can pull and push.
Okay. But we are planning to do app stop outreach during that time frame too. So we go to the bus stops, station stops to be able to connect with current riders. We will also have during that time frame the virtual open house. So available online on our portals 24/7 whenever someone wants to go and look at the materials that will be available. We are working very hard. So going to ask for the Austin Light Rail Working Group, I think that's the title of it, to come help us review some of our materials and make sure it's accessible, because if you haven't seen the draft environmental impact statement, it's like what, 600 pages of a lot of technical jargon. And so we're trying to make sure that it is readable, it is accessible, people understand what we're saying, what the outcomes are, and what our commitments are to the community as we move forward. And so we're going to ask for some help on that before we go fully live. So please look out for it.
Okay, timeline, is that just like, if all goes well, there's the DIS, and then there may be an FDIS sometime next year?
Yes, and I don't recall the exact time frame. I don't know if somebody does, but
And
into
the,
2025.
and then the real number I'm wondering about is like, at when would we be eligible to be included to get the funding? Would that be 2026 or 2027? Possibly.
26.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Lisa knows more
Because
than
there
me.
has to be another step though, and besides the passing the IS, we have to enter into, the FTA has to enter us into engineering.
Can we clarify what those letters?
The acronyms are, please. The FEIS is the final environmental impact statement. So we start with a draft that will come out first, and we do a community process to get feedback on. And then the final will be one, it'll show all of the comments that were given during that time frame, and then we'll be able to show what we moved into the final draft.
Thank you.
And then basically, there's a process for the FTA to say, yes, this is a project that makes sense and is eligible for funding. Is it called a record of decision?
There's a record of decision.
Yeah, so there's sort of a decision that this is okay, but then there's a decision of if it gets funding or not. And then just the question is like, when can we get to the, when do we get the
When can
money and
we
really move
apply?
on?
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
And what we can do is probably at the next meeting or in January, depending on when it is, kind of give an overview of the federal process too, so you can see how all of the inner workings and interconnections are happening, because it's a lot of different moving parts all at the same time.
and just so folks are clear, we are already in conversation figuring out the EIS coming to, of course, the CSC as well. So we're trying to figure that out as well and scheduling it. And I do want to just acknowledge one thing. Thank you to ADP for reconsidering. I know earlier we were looking at a comment period or community engagement period that was more December, January, and I know that this body specifically had mentioned that, you know, the holidays make it challenging for communities to engage. So we really appreciate that timeline moving to accommodate people more.
Yes, and last night we had another collision between the planning department and this wasn't exactly Cap Petro, but I just, they let ATP coordinate.
And so we are trying to do a better job of coordinating our calendars. It does get complicated because there's a lot happening, but I promise we're working on it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Other updates from ATP? If not, do we have any from the city of Austin? Yeah, just,
Hi, I'm Peter Cardinal from the City of Austin's project office, and I just have a couple of updates. One is that the planning department's ETOD team is hosting open houses this week. One was last night, Mr. Brooks came, thank you very much. Another is going on right now at Galindo Elementary from 6 to 8. Yeah, so, and then there will be a virtual presentation also on Saturday morning, which I will share the link with Giannis, and he can share it with the committee. Another thing is I know our web team at City of Austin would like to mention to you that we have a new translation tool that just started last week, literally, that has gone through a review process with professional linguists and native speakers on staff and third party. So it is one that, and I will share that with Giannis as well, so you can see, so you can learn about that. But the last item is that the housing department's displacement prevention team is preparing to release the application and solicitation for the next round of community initiated solutions grants, the $5 million for new organizations, because they've already gone through and approved the renewal of the current organizations. So that is scheduled tentatively anyway to be released in December, and it will be open for 8 weeks for new organizations to apply. And we'll have more information when that actually is released to make sure that y'all are aware.
Yeah. Meeting collision was between the shop and the Cap Metro customer satisfaction advisory committee.
Oh, we'll see that last night as well.
Yes. On your list, make sure the CSAC is in the Cap Metro CSAC.
You know what, that is a great point. Thank you very much for bringing that up, because I hadn't even considered that when we were listening to this.
we might need you to speak a little louder
For the interpreters.
for the interpreters.
Thank you
make
very
sure.
much. Thank you for pointing out that we need to consider CSAC and access meetings when we're looking at planning these. So thank you very much.
Well, they probably would be happy recipients of a presentation, so it isn't just not avoiding a collision, it's entertaining an audience.
Ms. Summers, you were gonna add something?
yeah, I was gonna say, especially with the new round of community initiated solutions, I think it's something that many of us know people in the community, they're very interested in that. So having that, make sure to send out all the public facing stuff to us so we can distribute that through our networks would be very helpful. I know that most of the commissioners would, we're not commissioners, what are we?
Committee members.
Committee members. I know that would really help us, so.
That's great, and I appreciate it, and I will definitely take advantage. Thank you.
thank you very much. Ms. Ortiz, go ahead.
Hi, there are no updates from Cap Metro, but I just wanted to come on and share.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That gets us to the end of our staff updates. And we knew this was going to be a slightly lighter agenda. I don't know if there's any working group or TAC updates. We'll sort of open it up. I know from the working groups that I'm on, we have not met since our last meeting. On the future meetings and agenda items, so one, do we have any requests for future agenda items?
I mean, this is obvious, and we just heard we were gonna get it, but definitely want to hear about that draft environmental impact statement.
Yep, that is definitely gonna be on our agenda, and we're trying to honestly figure out with staff how we want to do that in a way where it is a little more maybe workshop style, where folks can engage a little bit more. So we're figuring that out, how to manage that as well.
Sure.
So, yes, Mr. Grassi, go ahead.
I think we've talked about having some Metro Rapid discussions. And just think there's the city leap thing. And some that the city, Austin City Council has asked city staff to do a study of city leap, which in a way really incorporates a lot of things that people are already working on about like transit priority lanes and things. And so just that specific part of like, are there more opportunities to support whatever that team is that works on Cap Metro and city working together on transit priority lanes and things like that? And can we support those discussions and like provide more priority lanes to Metro Rapids? So it could be just part of a Metro Rapid discussion, but that's specifically that part of how the city can support Metro Rapid better and more.
We'll try to figure out on the city side, sort of what that would be, and I think that's actually maybe a really good conversation for the working group to consider as well.
Yeah, I guess that would
Yep,
be in the new Cap
exactly,
Metro,
the
yeah.
new Cap Metro,
Right.
and I believe you're in it,
Yes.
yes. That all makes sense.
And maybe the key point is that whoever's at the city is doing the city leap thing has the best information of all the good work that's already been done is sort of important.
I'll be honest, I don't know what the city leap thing is. Can you
It was brought up in all the discussions of a bond, but there was a separate resolution by council to ask staff to study this concept. And the concept is all arterials, figure out if you can reallocate a lane to bike lanes or bus.
And what it fights very directly against is unfortunately, there already is a joint city Cap Metro effort
Right.
to, amongst other things, introduce more bus priority lanes, ones their medical school is an example of their work. And I think their work needs to be much wider publicized and included in the bond. Meanwhile, this other group has, without aware of the first team existing, proposed that a certain number every year at random of traffic streets be converted to bus.
City Leap was a concept that was put forward by Safe Streets Austin. So it was like a sort of just a vision concept that was promulgated into the community around the possible bond discussions that didn't happen. And then there's been this excitement around it that's bubbled up, and there was a UTC resolution and then the city council, and we had a very interesting UTC meeting. You can see me and Ruben, we agree on a lot of things, but anyway, so you can watch us on that if you want to go back and look at that, but that's what that was, yeah.
That's helpful.
Just to reiterate, I think we could have a role of supporting the good work that staff on all these teams have already done on these issues, making sure that we're not just wasting our time, or, we're forwarding that good work.
And honestly, one thing this is making me think of, and that's something we consider as a future agenda item is, and I think what might be, I'm gonna sort of, if folks are willing, a soft charge to our working groups to consider for the bond advisory task force, if we want to put together a set of recommendations from the CAC. It might be something that I think maybe the working groups need to tackle, then bring it to the CAC, and then we can collect them all, because I'll be honest, there's so many different moving parts, so it'd be great to hear from the different working groups to talk about that. And maybe, I don't know what their timeline looks like, we'll keep an eye on that. And maybe we want to make a recommendation as the CSE to the bond advisory task force.
I think one of the undersung or unsung, giant leaps forward has been between how the city of Austin staff work together with ATP and Camp Petra staff. And we do the world a favor by publicizing how much, it's just incredible. 5 years.
That's helpful. Just on the future agenda items, a few quick things I just want to quickly mention. One, we have at this point, thank you staff, thank you all commissioners, thank you particularly for the team that staffs us. We have gotten to sort of the end of our list of all of our agenda items that could be accomplished this year. I think there's a bunch of things, there are still outlying requests, I just want to acknowledge that. But a lot of that from a timing perspective made sense for them to go to next year. So Rapid, for example, a second update on the Rapids is something we'll probably get in the new year. Having said that, what I was going to ask was, we have this conversation is, do we want to keep our December meeting? As far as we're aware at this moment, we do not have any time sensitive items from the staff side. If that comes up, we can move ahead. But beyond that, are there any things that the body considers it's important for us to have a December meeting? Or if we do not have items, should the executive consider essentially removing that meeting from the calendar? I just want to have that conversation in the future meetings item.
I guess to make sure there's not some need for a pre-light rail EIS, anything for us, like basically we're just ready to participate in the open house like anyone else. That's as long as there's not a need for something there.
That's, yeah, the only thing I was thinking of is like whether, you know, you mentioned a workshop or maybe it's 2 meetings, like that's like, it could almost be either way, like a extended workshop style, or it could be 2 meetings where we go through the DEIS, so, I definitely don't feel strongly about December, just however we can make best use of our time to really engage this group for the DEIS, I wanna do.
And so the DIS and I look at staff, it really will not be ready for us to view until January. But in December, if we wanted to do what Mr. Crossley, you were mentioning, sort of, or someone mentioned, like walking through the federal process, like that's something we could do. But we would not be able to talk about the actual DIS because it does not go public until essentially the new year.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Mayor.
Sorry. So I'm happy to do whatever the committee needs. But first of all, congratulations to all of y'all that you got the work done that you set out to get done this year. But it might be helpful because I am really new to a lot of these processes. I'm not committed to it, but it might be helpful for me and maybe some of the other new committee members to just kind of, like you said, like just kind of walk through the process. But I'm not fully committed to that. You know, if y'all decide that you don't want to do a December meeting, that's fine with me too.
That's helpful. I think what would really maybe help us is already taking notes from the meetings. I'm looking at particularly newer committee members, but this applies to everyone. If there's processes and things, just basics that folks want to cover, feel free to send that as emails to staff. And I think maybe what we need to do is we need to collate them into sort of one larger meeting where we talk to those processes. I know at some point the development assistance program process for housing had been brought up. That was like, we have lists of things like that that are sort of how to just the basics of a single issue work. If folks have particular questions, please share them. And if that looks like something we do this December, if not, that's something we can definitely carry forward as well. We'll make sure that we get to do that. Ms. Leto, I feel like you were going to say something.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Yes.
I have one like that, which is just the budgeting process, and I believe 3 different budgeting, you know, the city, ATP and Cap Metro. And like we got the survey from the city asking commissioners what they thought, and I don't know, and I don't really know how that's supposed to work and how we're supposed to input on that. So for me.
They didn't really intend that for us, so.
Right.
That was
Okay.
really more intended for the regular city commissions.
Right.
Who
But
do regular budget recommendations.
Yeah, okay, so we don't do recommendations on city budget, but we could.
We haven't, we could.
We can. we can, and actually this time around, we did end up sending a set of
some.
recommendations, and actually, that might be a good thing for us to understand, because this is the first time we've done the 2-year
Yeah.
budget process. So technically, we're not supposed to do a full budget next year, but I don't think anyone knows what that means.
For the
So,
city?
yes.
I can speak to the city budget
Please do.
part. The Joint Inclusion Commission does, they have, webinars and different things that specifically speak to the budgeting process. And cause as part of the mayor's committee for people with disabilities, they really helped us in understanding the process. So it's called the Joint Inclusion Commission. That they really do a good job of walking people, and they have public meetings and stuff all the time. I can maybe look it up and email that out. If people are
And
interested.
I know the chair, but, you know, one of the problems though with the budget is that for the city, if we want to have any impact, we need to be making our recommendations in March.
Yes.
Not in July and August like we were, whereas ATP and probably that's true of Capital Metro too, that we need to be doing it much earlier, but the city in particular, the way it works, our recommendations have to go in very early.
Okay, we'll keep all of those things in mind. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Community Advisory Committee at 6:21 PM. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And in case I don't get to
Everyone.
see y'all, Merry Christmas. Or Happy Holidays. We might not get to see y'all.
Happy
Stevie, that's
Thanksgiving.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanksgiving.